So welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock PM time slot to join us for this Spring Reset webinar. And we have got some great speakers, and they're all speaking thanks to Taste Success, which is a food-first approach to nutrition. Done for you meal plans with easy meal plan shopping lists, recipes, and coaching support. So that's essentially Tracey and I. Disclaimer, but we wanted to bring this Spring Reset series to you because we know so many amazing coaches, and we've got lots of great information that we know people love to hear and get inspired by. So tonight you're going to hear from Tracey Loughran. She is a naturopath and nutritionist. She's the founder of Taste Success, and she's going to be talking about the natural alternative to Ozempic, which is like so hot right now. We also have Tracey, who is a pharmacist, a health coach, and has her own podcast and is quite a busy lady. And she's going to be talking about how EFT can help manage cravings. And I can't wait to hear that one. And then finally, you'll hear from me, and I'm going to be talking about how to hack your habits. So please, if you've got questions, put them in the chat. We're happy to answer them. We'll take questions right at the end. And I'm now going to hand over to Tracey.
Thanks so much, Sharon, and thanks all of you for taking some time out to be here this evening. I'm actually on from New Zealand, from Nelson, so really happy to be joining you from here. So as Sharon mentioned, I'm Tracey Loughran. I'm naturopath, nutritionist, and creator of the Taste Success suite of whole food programs. So this is quite an important webinar in the world of Taste Success, where we're working with a food-first approach to manage blood sugar regulation and body composition. So there's been years and years of work go into the development of our programs, and the ethic of my career is really that food first approach. So my father's a pharmacist, and I spent time, growing up out the back of the pharmacy and watching all sorts of things and creations happening out there in the good old days. So I'm conditioned, I guess, to take a sort of scientific and chemistry-based approach to how the body works and what it needs to thrive. And then my naturopathic training over 5 to 6 years has brought this approach to how food fuels our bodies and affects our bodies. So in this evening's talk, I want to bring you some concise little pops of information, and I hope they're going to be really truly useful to you as you enter spring, which is our season of new beginnings, isn't it? So it's the perfect time to be learning some more. So as Sharon mentioned, we're here tonight to learn about some alternatives to that medication Ozempic. So this drug is also known as semaglutide, and it's been on the market since only 2017, which makes it a real baby in terms of drug development and release on the human population. So it was put to market originally to help people manage their type 2 diabetes, which is a very, valid cause, by encouraging the pancreas to produce more insulin to lower blood glucose levels. So as I said, it's not been around very long, and there's quite a few side effects to that are already appearing. So it acts by slowing down digestion and increasing the time it takes for food to empty from the gut. So because it has an overall weight loss effect of between 5 to 10% of body weight on average, it's become very popular with people not just managing diabetes, but as a weight loss hack. So some of the more serious side effects that we would want to consider if we were looking at that was thyroid tumors, pancreatitis, vision problems, hypoglycemia, gallbladder issues, kidney failure, and cancer. So it's not an insignificant list of risks associated with this particular new medication. And I believe we need to take a safer way of managing blood sugar levels and diabetes and weight loss. So we know that there's a multitude of options available to us, and I think that in itself can be overwhelming, and we hope to cut through some of that for you. It can be really hard to figure out which path to follow. So I'm going to give you some research-based and practical and easy options to consider tonight. So I've created a series of nutrition programs based on all of these principles over 18 years as a naturopath, and have helped thousands of people to lose weight without extreme measures in a sustainable way that keeps your body healthy as you go. And they also balance blood sugar levels really quickly, and usually within the first 4 or 5 days, that's the most common report we get from people who go through our programs, is that they're not craving carbohydrate and sugar anymore. And it's a very, very quick transition. So there's no magic here. And there's no pills to pop. It's actually just a food first approach, which I'm really excited to present. So I've also tested a good number of these people that I've worked with personally. I've tested their HbA1c levels, which is a glycated hemoglobin. It's a marker for diabetes risk, essentially. And what we notice is that those levels drop when people are eating this way, which is super exciting, without medication. So we know food makes a massive difference. So the first tool in our food first approach, I'm going to be going through some basic concepts that you're very familiar with, but just breaking them down and giving you a little bit more information, is of course protein. And there's a lot been discussed around protein and how much we need and the different types. What protein is actually is a blend of amino acids, and the body breaks these amino acids down to then go on and build your body tissue. So your bones, your skin, your nerves, your enzymes, your hormones. They break down much more slowly, of course, than carbohydrate. So protein in the gut, and to turn it into an energy source, takes about 3 to 4 hours on average. And carbohydrate, for example, takes 1 to 1.5 hours. So you can see that it's a much more slow release source of energy for your body, and it's also building up new tissue for you. It has a stabilizing effect on your blood glucose levels. And I'm sure you've experienced that if you've had, a protein-rich meal versus a carbohydrate-rich meal, and the difference and how that makes you feel. So proteins don't leave you feeling hungry generally shortly after eating them, which carbohydrate can do. So whether you're a meat eater or you opt for a plant-based diet, we've worked hard to ensure that there's plenty of protein in our programs to keep your energy levels stable and stop your body from going into that glucose craving state. So you may have experienced what that feels like. It's shakiness, it's sugar cravings, it's brain fog, it's irritability. Sometimes we often see it in teenagers, don't we? And some things you may not be aware of too, such as waking up in the night. That's because there's not enough blood sugar stabilization to keep you going through the night. Your brain will wake you up to get some fuel. Dizziness, sweating, anxiety, and a fast heart rate. So glucose is absolutely essential for your brain to function. It's the main fuel for your brain. So a fluctuating level can very quickly cause cognitive problems. So that poor memory and concentration, the brain fog, the mid-afternoon slump, mood changes and more can be just due to that poor blood sugar regulation. And another reason why good levels of protein and slow release carbohydrates and healthy fats are so very important is to look after your brain. So eating enough protein at breakfast time is especially important, or if you're fasting, the first meal of your day, that you get enough protein, and then it's a good way to set those blood sugar levels in a good place. So you're not getting that sort of swing and dip, which a lot of, let's say, cereal-based breakfasts would give you. They give you the high and the drop, and then that set your sort of cascade for sugar cravings throughout the rest of the day. So how much protein do we need to help with blood sugar balance? Now, I'm not a person who likes to put hard and fast rules around humans, because we have different needs. We are different body sizes and shapes. We've got different genetics. But in the case of protein, 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight is a kind of a general rule for what will keep your blood sugar levels stable. On the other side of that, it's interesting because too much protein can actually also spike your blood sugar levels, which is not a commonly known fact. And it is of concern for people who are going into those really high protein, let's say the carnivore diet as an example. It may feel amazing to start with, but there's a lot of damage going on there potentially as well. So that can happen, especially when insulin production is compromised in situations like pre-diabetes and diabetes. So protein's had a lot of fads wrapped around it, and we need to come back to that sort of core of getting enough at each meal and making sure that the protein quality is good. So I do caution in engaging in diets of extremes. You may feel good initially, as I said, but there's quite a few risks. So if you're a meat eater, then your easiest protein sources are going to be the regular consumption of meat and fish and chicken and eggs, with additional nuts and seeds and high protein grains in there. That's going to be job done. If you're a vegan or vegetarian, you do have to focus more on this, as well as some other nutrients. So your quinoa, really high protein source, your chia seeds, your legumes, your tofus, your nuts and seeds, even things like buckwheat, peas and legumes are really important in our programs. We've taken great care to make sure, even in our plant-based program, that the protein is taken care of, because it's so important. So at the end of each section, I've got 3 of them tonight. I'm just going to talk briefly about a recipe that I'm going to send to Sharon to share with you if you'd like it. So there's 3 recipes to share from our programs that sort of embody what I'm talking about tonight. So the first one is a quinoa nut salad, and that contains not only quinoa as a high vegetarian protein source, but tahini and Brazil nuts and walnuts and almonds as well. So it's really ticking a lot of boxes and it tastes good. So we'll be sharing that one. Next topic is fiber. Again, not something you're not unfamiliar with, but what exactly is it? So it's a structural portion of, fruit, vegetables, grains, nuts or legumes, and it can't be digested or absorbed. So soluble fiber provides a small amount of energy in the form of calories, but insoluble fiber produces none at all. So it's not a high calorie dense sort of substance, but it's so important when we're talking about the regulation of blood sugar levels. So it helps control those, it helps control your cholesterol, and it has huge benefits for your gut microbiome, which is where a lot of that sort of carbohydrate and energy is playing out. So your gut microbiome loves the right sources of fiber as food. And so that creates good diversity, which can help with blood sugar. So our main sources of fiber, we've got a soluble fiber, and it acts as a kind of a gel. If you can imagine soaking chia seeds, which you may have done, or flax seeds, and the kind of gel that's produced there, that's what happens in your gut. And so it's got a quality called mucilage, which is healing to the gut lining. It's soothing and healing. Imagine applying aloe vera to a wound. Very, very similar effect in the gut. And it helps also to get rid of excess fat by sort of soaking it up if it's in the intestinal lumen, and then excess cholesterol as well. And inulin is a particular source of soluble fiber that's found in many plant foods. So it's a prebiotic, feeding those good gut bacteria. And we know that there are certain kinds of gut bacteria that help us with weight loss. And so having that diversity in the gut is a really important tool for you. So it's found in such foods as garlic and leeks and onions, common things, and then some less common things like chicory root and dandelion teas. Bananas have some, and then chia seeds is a really good source, flax seeds as well. So it's a matter of getting those in an easy way, and we've got really good tools to help you with that. Most Westerners, we don't eat nearly enough fiber. It's quite well known. So increasing those levels alone can make a massive difference to your health journey. Insoluble fiber, this type bulks up your bowel motions for easy release, and there's many sources of insoluble fiber, but there's a few with very high levels. So our brown rice, our couscous, parsnips, carrots, potatoes, celery, cucumbers, courgettes, beans and lentils, nuts and seeds, and fruits with edible seeds as well. So getting these in regularly. When I ask my clients about how regularly they eat these foods, it might be once or twice a week, but we've really got to get them in quite regularly. And fiber that ferments in the gut is one of the most studied when it comes to blood glucose control, the fermentable fibers. So pectin, beta-glucans, guar gum, and inulin, some of these things you may not have heard of, but I would encourage you after the recording, if you want to go back and have a listen, to look them up, because they're like our superstars really in the fiber world. And beta-glucans, for example, has been shown to decrease appetite and reduce overall food intake. And it's in simple things like barley and mushrooms and oats. So some really great hacks, if that's what we're looking for helping your blood sugar levels in a way that really doesn't taste horrible as well, which is always a good bonus. So the foods that contain a mix of soluble and insoluble fibers, our legumes do. They don't have the most exciting kind of profile and wrap to them. But if you get some good, easy recipes going, you can easily integrate them into your diet each week. And we've got a few of those available. One legume in particular, peanuts, are extremely satiating, and they have good fiber and protein. So our avocados, our oats, our prunes and beans are more sources that combine a lot of these together. So the recipe from this section that I'm going to be sharing with you is our walnut and cumin cakes. And so they're made with psyllium and flaxseed and brown rice and nut butter. So ticking a lot of those boxes that we've just been talking about. Our last section from me tonight is our essential fatty acids. And we know that the body can't make a lot of these itself, so it needs a daily supply from the diet. And they're not only essential for healthy blood sugar levels, but for the health of every cell in your body, including good brain function. So every cell has essential fatty acids around the outside to let toxins out and nutrients in. We need them. So they can be a difficult thing to get right in your diet, but avoiding processed food is a great way to start. So many processed foods contain high fat and sugar content, because this makes them very appealing to your primal brain, which is wired for high density calories quickly from the days of fasting and famine. So in my programs, I've included plenty of healthy fats and oils that provide your body not only with protective qualities for your cells, but those that are known to support longevity as well. So a few of some of the healthy sources of fats included, based on research, is seafood. So they not only contain healthy fats and oils, but also vitamins and minerals and antioxidants to help regulate your blood sugar levels, along with good protein. And seafood can help to slow your digestion down by preventing those post-meal blood sugar spikes, and it can help prevent overeating. So that fatty fish salmon is one of the best sources there, with the best source of omega-3. And there was one study done of overweight adults that showed just 750 grams of fatty fish per week regularly improved blood sugar levels on its own, with no other changes. Olive oil, so you'll know this one from the Mediterranean diet, and many studies have now shown how powerful the effect of olive oil is on our blood sugar levels, reducing the risk of diabetes because of its rich monounsaturated fat content. So it helps your body to process sugars in a healthier way. Coconut products can be polarizing, but they contain Loughran, which is a potent immune activator, and your brain is made of about 60% of the same kind of fat as coconut oil, so it's a really helpful thing to have in there for satiety. And nuts and seeds, so they contain fatty acids and protein and fiber as well. Having them regularly in your diet in a way that you enjoy is really, really helpful. So my top three there are walnuts, almonds and pistachios, for the qualities that we're looking for. And the recipe to share out of this section tonight is a fresh fish with an avocado salsa and a cauliflower mash. So those will be coming through to you as well. Now, I realize I've just got a couple of minutes left, so I did have a couple of quick things to share with you at the end, and then I'll hand back over to Tracey. So sulforaphane is another thing to be aware of, and it has blood sugar reducing properties. It's produced through an enzyme reaction when broccoli is chewed or chopped, and also our other brassica family foods. So really interesting. A nice broccoli salad, for example, would be a good thing here. And it has potent anti-diabetic effects, helping to enhance insulin sensitivity. So really, really good for blood sugar control. Chromium, you may have heard of before. That's a nutrient that's involved in a complex called glucose tolerance factor. And that is all about blood sugar control. We need it every day. And we find it in shellfish, broccoli again, green beans, potatoes, meat, Brazil nuts, and more. And magnesium, you'll be very familiar, but we can get a lot of this from our food. So the mechanism by which it helps blood glucose control is quite complex, but the short version is that in the cells, it helps to regulate insulin and blood vessel tone. So deficiency worsens our insulin resistance in those with diabetes and prediabetes. So the common signs of deficiency you may be aware of: eye twitching and leg cramps. So if you've got those two, or one of those two things going on, then you may have a magnesium deficiency, and it's worth looking at that. So just a quick note to finish on our meal plans at Taste Success. So they have you eating dinner as a leftover for lunch the next day. So we try to make our programs as simple to integrate in busy lives as possible. So dinner's left over for lunch the next day, most of the way through. A lot of the meals are freezable. They're very quick to make. And they not only fill you up and stabilize your blood sugars, but they give you good energy levels. They reduce your inflammation, improve your gut function, reduce your brain fatigue, which is helpful, and also can help with hormone balance. So we'd love to talk with you further about that. And Sharon is our Australian point of contact, and I'm your New Zealand contact. So please do reach out with any questions that you may have. So that's my session. Quick, hard, and lots of information in there. And I hope you enjoy. And I'm going to mute myself and hand over to Tracey.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to share my slides. I'm just salivating just thinking about this amazing food you've just highlighted. I love New Zealand salmon, so can't wait for the recipe, Tracey. Okay, let's just share my screen. Okay. So as a pharmacist and health coach, I've been helping my clients shift from stubborn weight and increase their energy levels using about 4 different strategies. So today we have time for one strategy, which is really important to actually go through today. But before I do that, I was just going to check. Jennifer said things that EFTs, electronic fund transfer, and I wish it was, because that's money going ka-ching, ching, ching. Has anyone heard of emotional freedom technique? Yeah, a couple of hands up. Yes. So what it is a mixture of CBT, which is the psychology of reframing our mindset, plus the physical aspects using 8 different acupressure points. And not to worry, we'll go through it together as we finish through the slides. So the obligatory disclaimer. So I'm a pharmacist and health coach. I am not a medical doctor. However, the thinking and the philosophy I actually teach, they go hand in hand with conventional medicine. So in terms of what we want to achieve from this session, has anyone suffered from any food cravings? Anything you would like to actually overcome today? Okay, so spring, I'm thinking my sweet tooth is coming out. So perhaps you can have a look at something that's sweet as a tapping topic. So please get a piece of paper and pen ready, because we're going to go through a couple of things. And just a reminder, this is a safe place. Feel free to be yourself. Okay. So we're going to go through understanding stress, what is emotional freedom technique, how to identify any food triggers that you might have. And we're going to all give it a go, because it's a bit weird if I'm just doing it on my own. Okay. And we're going to have a couple of modifications, perhaps how to actually implement EFT in those who can't do it themselves, whether it's kids, grandkids, or older parents. Is that cool? Okay, so I have an interesting accent. I grew up in Malaysia and I speak really fast. So if I go too fast, just raise your hands and I'll stop for you, but hopefully that's okay. All right, so firstly, why do we indulge in unhelpful behaviors? That's $1 million question, isn't it? So we live in an epidemic of road rage and screen time addictions. We all have different thinking about our body, and a lot of us are lonely. And modern rest is never really restorative. And we actually self-medicate by watching television. We might have enjoy a glass of wine, or my favorite, online shopping. So this is actually from Dr. Michelle Woolhouse. She's an integrative GP that went through burnout and had to actually leave her practice for a while. And I think this is showing us like the stresses that we have in modern life. Okay. So as Tracey highlighted with medications, they may have a place or role to play. However, my thinking is it doesn't actually address the root cause of the problem. A lot of the clients I see, food cravings, it's triggered by stress. So the life stresses that we actually, all of the above that we saw in the previous slide, it's sort of like, overburdens our brain and actually causes inflammation. And we know that chronic stress is not a problem. It's when it becomes long-term that it actually either increases our fight and flight stress chemicals, and that's akin to pressing the accelerator in the car. And that again increases stress chemicals and contributes to inflammation, and that vicious cycle, flaming of the inflammation cycle increases. The body tries to reestablish balance and then makes cortisol, which is an anti-inflammatory. And that's a bit like putting the brakes on. So imagine you actually accelerating and also pushing the brakes on at the same time. So what happens? So some of us get deer in headlights syndrome, where you actually freeze, or you might actually exhaust your body and feel fatigue because you overuse your energy to actually make all these stress chemicals. And long term, we know that chronic inflammation has been linked to all sorts of chronic diseases, including diabetes, cancers. But so what can we do about chronic stress, and what can we control? So at the bottom there, we have 5 different strategies on how to actually turn the dial down on stress so that we can help our body thrive. So adaptogens, so things to actually reduce the cortisol levels, like Siberian ginseng. We have aromatherapy, humming, the body, and meditation. So for today, we are going to focus on the physical aspects, the body and the mind, to actually help calibrate our stress levels. Is that all right? There is a couple of chats there. I'll just have a quick look. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So why emotional freedom technique? It works really fast. So in terms of when you look at the science, the fastest it was 15 minutes. And it has shown to be effective in many different conditions. So on the right-hand side, you can see a word cloud. So it has been shown to be really beneficial in helping people manage phobias, mental conditions like anxiety, depression, and physical sensations, frozen shoulder, and also food cravings. And that's why we're here today. The beauty about EFT is that you can actually do it yourself. You don't have to go to a practitioner to actually have passive treatment where you have to rely on somebody else. So it's very self-empowering. So a lot of my clients, when they use affirmations, but sometimes affirmations don't work because perhaps it's not the truth. But what EFT does, it marries both the mindset, the mind avenue, as well as the physical. So it calms the amygdala, which is the stress center of the brain. So it sort of deactivates the excess, like cortisol that we actually saw in the stress chemistry diagram. And interestingly, with the science, it is sustained over time. So Dr. Peta Stapleton, she's a clinical psychologist in Bond University in Queensland. She's done lots of research on food cravings. And she's shown that for food cravings with EFT, 2 hours a week, four sessions can actually reduce food cravings, 2 years down the track. So it is very sustainable and it's very cost effective. And the best of it is there's no adverse effects. Okay. So how does tapping affect our brains? So this is a shot of a functional MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. So on the left side of the diagram is before EFT. Okay. And then 5 weeks later, it's on the right-hand side. And you see that the yellow, red, and orange lights are reflecting of the activation of the brain that manages fear as well as food addictions. And you can see on the right-hand side, after 4 weeks of EFT, not much lighting up was seen at all. So it's quite amazing that you can see the physiology on scans and the benefits of EFT. Okay, so are you all ready to we can try a little bit of tapping? Okay, it's a 3-step process. So we start off with a setup statement, which goes like, even though I, blah, 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 I want to deeply and completely accept myself. And before we do that, we actually score our level of distress from 1 to 10. And we actually use our side of our hands to actually do that. So this is based on 8 different acupressure points. Okay, and then we tap the acupressure points and then we replace the statements with how you would like things to be. And then we just keep on repeating until the score reduces. I'm just going to stop sharing and perhaps check with everybody else. Like, does anyone have any food craving or anything you'd like to actually go through today? I might have to choose chocolate. All right, I'll choose chocolate. Okay. All right. I'll just... Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So it starts with, I score myself 1 to 10, how distressed I am about chocolate. So why am I worried about chocolate? It's one of those things where once I start, I can't stop. And it reminds me of perhaps like the childhood times when I was growing up. As a treat after dinner, my dad would pull out a bar of Cadbury's chocolate and then he would again break pieces off. So when we actually tap, it sort of like goes into our amygdala, the stress center, and highlights like where the feelings come, when it comes to that particular type of food. So even though I enjoy this piece of chocolate that my dad, provides at the end of the meal, I want to deeply and completely accept myself. So the first one is on the side of your hands. So if everybody can find it in your hands, it doesn't matter which one you start with, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. So you do a bit of tapping there. The second spot is the first part of the eyebrow. Then you go tap, tap, tap. Doesn't matter if it's one hand or two hands or right side or left side. It's the action itself that actually helps calm the amygdala. So the third point is the side of the eyes. And then you might say chocolate. Once I start under the eye, I can't stop. But it's delicious. Feels good. Yummy. So that's your collarbone. Then you give yourself a hug. And then you go right to the top of the head. Okay.
Therese, can I just ask you, why are you sharing a PubMed article?
Oh, sorry. I don't know why. Oh, it's meant to be my PowerPoint. Okay. Thank you, Sharon. Okay.
That's right. I'd like to see the image.
Okay. Should we go another round just for good luck? Okay. So the first part is the side of your hands. And then after that, it's you're going from the start of the eyebrow, side of the eye, under the nose, the chin, the collarbone, under the arm. We use a setup statement. And then you score yourself. And the setup statement goes like this: even though I love chocolate, I want to deeply and completely accept myself. Then you tap the acupressure points and then restart again. So let's give it another go. Okay, so I love chocolate. Once I start, I can't stop. Score of 1 to 10. Too much doesn't help. Doesn't help with the fat. Too much sugar. Wires up the brain. Even though I love chocolate and it's delicious, I want to deeply and completely accept myself. Okay, I see everybody doing it. How any feedback? Like, how do you feel by tapping? Yeah. So the sort of feedback I get is that they feel a bit more calm. And so I was going to share with you some modifications. If you've got kids, grandkids, or aging parents, I do what we call a discrete mode. So when Tracey was actually presenting, I was actually doing the finger point. So this is when you want to be discreet with your EFT because it has shown to be really beneficial in stress management. So in university, kids have actually managed to calm themselves down and help remember facts for exams. And you can do the discrete mode by looking at by just pressing, you know, that part like in between your nail bed and your finger. So you do your thumb, squeeze, and then your index finger, your middle finger, you skip your ring finger, and then you go to your pinky. So that's the discrete mode. The kids mode is we actually do 4 of the acupressure points. So there's a variation, but they can do the beginning of the eyebrow, the top of the mouth, the collarbone, and then the monkey hug yourself. So that's about 4. And so that's kids as well can do it with this reduced sort of acupressure points and to help calm themselves. There are videos as well. I'll share you a link to one where you can actually do a song about tapping. The third modification is breath. So even not saying the words and just going through the 8 different acupressure points and breathing can also be beneficial. And the last one is surrogate tapping. So you've got older patients. So EFT International, you can actually download a free guide, and they've actually said in people volunteers in aged care settings and people with dementia, and they help them actually tap either using the patient's fingers to do it on themselves, and if they like it, it seems to actually help calm and to relax them as well. So there's different ways that we can actually use emotional freedom technique. Okay, so that's just a theory. What about in real life? So my case study is a 48-year-old female with chronic chip eating habit. She's a busy healthpreneur, which is an entrepreneur and also a health practitioner. She has a family history of fatty liver disease. And she's, she has this vicious cycle. We do it all the time. We eat foods that we're not supposed to eat, but then when we overeat it, you feel guilty and you feel, oh my goodness, why am I doing this? And I'm so bad. So she secretly hides her potato chips from her husband. But however, she cannot help but buy potato chips on special. So with this particular case study, how we managed it was we went through health coaching. So I'm a graduate of the accredited health coaching, so a bit of shout out with them. And so asking the right questions and unpacking why they're eating those chips was very useful with this particular client. And what really made the big change, because once we unpack the reason why she ate those chips, and once she starts, she can't stop, reminded her of her time with her grandparents, where as a treat, they would give her a snack. And so she felt comfortable. And when I was doing, when the health coaching thing, so it was described as, oh, you're getting a hug from your potato chips. And that's when the penny dropped that, why is she relying on potato chips? And so that reduced her potato chip craving. However, whenever she saw them on sale, she still had this feeling that she wanted some more as well. And that's when we actually started work on doing this tapping. And that again, over time. So a lot of times the science says 2 hours tapping and 4 times, so 8 hours. And then you can do it online or actually face-to-face as well, can actually help reduce the food cravings. And you saw the MRI screen where it actually help reduce the activation in the brains that actually control food addiction. Okay. So with this particular client, she still had that craving. And so we had to be more specific as to why she liked the chips, because it was salty. It gave her a bit of a flavor, and it could be because she was not getting much from her diet. And the timing as well made a big difference, that if we actually time the EFT before dinner, when she would actually normally splurge and crave and start eating her chips. And can you guess who that case study was? I think Sharon would know. It's actually myself. So I was actually a chronic potato chip addict, and through health coaching as well as EFT, it helped me unpack the reason why I was eating nonstop. And it gave me the skills, because it's so effective that you're not just doing the mindset thing, you're tapping on the brain part that actually lights up when you actually see foods. So again, being specific and timing makes a big difference. And you can see as well, if you want to take a screenshot, this is the 9 News food cravings where Dr. Peter Stapleton was actually interviewed. And there is a kids video as well on that. Okay. So thank you for your time. This is a QR code where I went through the one strategy that highlights how to shift stubborn weight. There's about 3 other strategies. And what I've done is I put together a little booklet to help unpack the top 5 questions to shift stubborn weight loss. What do you ask about semaglutide, Ozempic? What do you need to know? What's the questions to ask to personalize it to your individual circumstances? Plus, I've added a bonus, 3 strategies that my clients have found very useful in shifting stubborn weight. Thank you. Any questions? Do we have time for questions?
I think Sharon, you might have just frozen there briefly. Yeah, no, we've lost Sharon just briefly. Oh, there you go. You're back on again.
As soon as someone stops screen sharing, I just freeze. Therese, that was great. And you know what I think that's really interesting is that the tapping, which is actually going to feed really nicely into what I'm about to talk about, but actually the tapping at the time when you're having the craving. Because I know that I've tried tapping when I'm stressed about something and it doesn't really work for me, but I actually think tapping when I'm thinking, it's so intentional. I can see how that would actually be really useful. So very fascinating. So I'm just going to whiz through how to hack your habits, and it's going to be a little bit interactive. So if you've got your pen and your paper, that would also be fantastic. So habits, what are they? They're something that we do often, we do them regularly, and sometimes without knowing that we're doing them. And so if you think about the times that you're bored at work, or, I'm always on my computer, and you all of a sudden you find yourself looking in the cupboard. You don't even know how you got there, but you're opening the fridge. I go home to my parents' house and I just open the fridge. Like, there's really not going to be anything in there I like to eat. But we have these habits, they're automatic. They're things that we do one thing and then we associate another behavior with it. Sometimes behaviors are good, or these habits are good, and sometimes they're not good. So we could have unhealthy habits around alcohol, that we could drink too much. We might have great sleep habits. We might have terrible sleep habits. We might love staying up late and watching Netflix. And just one more, I can just fit one more in before I go to bed. We might find that we've got little sugar addictions, ice cream. Caitlin, I heard, saw that in the chat. A little bit, I'm a bit the same. We might have healthy habits around exercise, or we might have terrible habits around exercise. We might struggle to drink water. We might have social media addictions, or we might have some really great habits around how we use our phone. So habits aren't only bad, but often when we talk about habits, we really are focusing on the bad habits that we want to break. And in Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, he talks about basically the three components of a habit. And I remember when I learned this and it blew my mind. I can still remember listening to the podcast that was talking about habits, and I stopped and wrote notes in my phone. So we start off with a cue. There is something that triggers the behavior, and then we do the behavior. So the trigger might be a time of day. The trigger might be that we have a fight with someone. The trigger might be that we are exhausted, and then that triggers us, or bored. That triggers us to go to the cupboard and eat something. So there's always a trigger. And then from the trigger becomes the habit. So the habit is the thing that we do, whether it's eating the biscuits, whether it's drinking the wine, whether it's thinking, I'll just watch one more show before I go to bed. And then we get a reward. And the reward is the benefit that we get from doing the behavior in the first place. And I'm going to come back to the reward because it's very interesting. So just think a second about your bad habits, if you have any. I mean, you might not have any bad habits. And just think for a second about what your bad habit is. That's the routine. So if you start with the bad habit, which might be, I eat ice cream every night after dinner from a friend. It's not me. Then we're going, what's the cue? Okay, so the cue might be that the house is quiet. Everyone's dinner's done. The house is, cleaned up. And I finally, my friend, the other person, finally sit down on the couch and go, oh my gosh, I've had nothing for me today. It's been about everyone else. I'm going to have some ice cream. And you eat the ice cream and it feels great and you feel great. And that's the reward. You get the hug, either from the potato chips or the ice cream. So you get the comfort. It's something for you. It's the self-care that you've been craving all day. So for all of you, write down what your habit is, what the cue is, whether it's a time of day or sometimes it's just seeing something. Like if I walk into the pantry and I see chocolate, I'm like, oh, I'd really, really fancy some chocolate. So it can be as simple as a visual cue. It could be a situational cue, just sitting down at the end of a day. You think, oh, wouldn't mind a few chippy chips. And then what's the reward? The reward is how we feel, the payoff that we get. So hopefully you've written that down. And now there is another layer to this, which is in Atomic Habits, James Clear's Atomic Habits. And that is, it's not just a cue, a routine, and a reward. There's actually a moment where we get the craving. And this is really interesting because the craving is, of course, linked to the reward. The cue is, you have a fight with your partner, and the craving is, I want to feel better. I want someone to give me a hug. I want to feel calm. And so what do? Is we do whatever the routine is so that we can feel calm. So when there's people who come home, they're stressed, they're wired from work, they walk in the door, they reach for the wine, they drink the wine, and then in just a few minutes, they go, oh, that's better. So the craving is, I want to feel calmer. I don't want to feel this stressed. I want to let this go. That's the craving. And then they drink the wine and their craving gets satisfied. So we actually have an unmet need. And when we talk about changing behaviors, the reason we struggle to change behaviors is because they're meeting a need. So it's not as easy as just choosing a new routine. So if you've written your cue, routine, and reward, now maybe think about, what's the craving? And this might be a really great thing to think about tonight or tomorrow when you're about to do the thing, or maybe you are doing the thing that is the bad habit. And you might think, thoughts was I having? Or why did I choose this? I'm just really curious, and try to dig to find out what that unmet need is. So what we say with habits, if you want to change a habit, there's a couple of things you can do. You can try to change the cue. So if for example, if you've got a visual cue, like you walk in and then you see the biscuit jar, or you see the box of chocolates, and then that's the cue, maybe you can change that. Maybe you can put a fruit bowl, maybe you can put a water bottle next to your computer, and that will be a visual cue to actually have a good habit. So the first thing we think about with habits is there something we can do about the cue? Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. Some people find that if they, instead of sitting on the couch, they go and sit in their bedroom, they actually don't get up and make themselves a bowl of chips or grab the chocolate. So sometimes just changing our situation or changing the visual cues. But often we can't change those cues. We do get bored while we're working on our computers. We do want a break. We do have a fight with someone or feel stressed. And so then what we've got to think about is not, what's the different behavior I can do? Because that's what people think. Oh, well, you know what? When I'm feeling stressed, what I'll do is I would read a book. However, the reason this doesn't work is we've got to think about the craving and we've got to think about the reward. So what are we craving when we have the fight? What are we craving when we're bored? And how can we do that in a way that's actually helpful versus unhelpful? And it's going to give us the same reward. What's going to help us to feel calm? So maybe it's tapping. So maybe when you come home from work and you're stressed, maybe a bit of tapping instead of drinking the wine could be an answer. Or maybe it's meditation. Maybe some people, they come home and they put on their walking shoes and they head straight out, or they take their cup of tea and they take 10 deep breaths in nature. Whatever it is, we've got to think, what's my craving? And how can I meet that craving another way? Because it's no good to just think of an alternative behavior. If it's not going to meet the craving, if it's not going to give you that reward, it's not going to stick. So what I'd really encourage you to do is just brainstorm what else is going to meet that unmet need. What else is going to satisfy that craving that you have and give you the reward that you're really, really yearning for. And then based on that, you can create a new routine. So just say I go, right. So when everyone's in their rooms, getting ready for bed, dinner's done, and I'm like, I'm going to start tapping. So it's not enough to just say I'm going to start tapping. What I have to do is I have to come up with a plan. It needs to be a step-by-step plan. And I probably need reminders. I probably need backup plans. I probably need a whole lot of steps in place to make sure I actually do it. I might need sticky notes on the freezer. So when I go get that ice cream, I go, oh, hang on, I'm not going to eat ice cream. I'm going to tap. Maybe I have alarms that go off. So it's not enough to just come up with an idea. We have to have plans in place, and that's all part of health coaching. So the really great thing about understanding the habit loop is we can also create good habits. So we can think about, what's a cue that's going to remind me to drink water? and the routine would be drinking water. You know, what's a cue that's going to remind me to do my meditation at night? And we can focus on the reward that we're looking for, and the focusing on what we want to get out of it can also help us stick to the behavior. So with Taste Success, you know, what we really help is we help people who have got goals around eating better, stuck in a food rut, you know, throwing things together that aren't really very balanced, finding that it's, you know, time to make dinner and they just don't really, they've kind of got a weird, I call it random fridgitis, random foods in the fridge, and they don't really make a meal and you've got to run to the shops and grab something. Or maybe it's just the exhaustion of, I don't even want to think about what's for dinner. I'm just going to run down the shops and, you know, get some takeaway and make the easy choice. So with Taste Success, I always say it solves the problem of what's for dinner. It does so much more than that. But because we've got meal plans and the shopping lists are done and the recipes are done, when you've got someone in their bad habit is being not being prepared and, you know, not having the right foods and then just eating takeaway or just eating something that's not nutritious because it's the easy choice, we can really support them to put some structure into that. And so when everything's done for you, when your meal plan's there, when your shopping's been bought, you planned, you know, you can be consistent. You can learn what works. You can think about what your triggers are. So for me, I know that I'm really tired at 5:30 and the ability to put together a healthy meal is just not there. So I know that I need to have my planning done at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So by creating that awareness of when you need to prep, when you need to plan, when you need to do your shopping, you can really start to be consistent. You can save time and energy too. So as Tracey said, you know, we do run Taste Success programs. You can run them as a coach, or you can have them for yourself as a client. So there's a beautiful gut health program, a skin program, a plant-based. There's also a foundation program and a refresh program. So, you know, they really do help us get into good habits. And once we're in good habits, we can stick to those habits for life. So we have 3 minutes.
That's awesome, Sharon. Thanks so much. I love that. And I was already writing down furiously, I think times of day, like certain times of day for a lot of people, you know, whether it's that mid-afternoon, you know, and they're bored, or, you know, they're hungry, or whatever it might be, or, you know, need a distraction, or that dinner time. I think dinner time and just after dinner time for a lot of my clients and myself is actually a very strong habit time. And just recognizing that's, actually, you know, I do the same thing every evening, and that's not necessarily fulfilling my life purpose, you know. So, but it is providing, I live on my own, so it's providing comfort. So I think there's a lot to be said for the underlying need there. And I really appreciate this session. I think it's going to be really helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, we say change starts with awareness. So becoming aware of the fact that, oh, wow, I have got food cravings, or, you know what, I am hungry all day. You know, to your point, Tracey, about the balancing blood sugars, you know, everyone is running out to this drug so that they can, you know, not feel hungry. And there's all these natural ways of doing it. Eat fiber, eat protein, eat healthy fats. You know, I always think nutrition is really easy and we make it really, really complicated. And when we live on this high carbohydrate diet, we're starving all the time. And I used to see a lot of people with diabetes in my clinics, and they used to all say, if only I could just not be hungry. And you know what? Guess what they were eating? Carbohydrate, 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 6 times a day.
And what you were just talking about there too, like with our food producers, I mean, it's everywhere. You walk into a supermarket and there's just a wall of carbohydrate, really, isn't there? You know, it's kind of hard to find the healthy choice. You've got to seek them out. And so I think that's a situation that the brain is very, you know, excited about. And so when we think about where we shop and how we plan for that, you know, these shopping list situations actually is, you know, you're in there once. And so you're not having that constant stimulation of, you know, the need to fire up the brain with carbs as well. So absolutely agree.
And so I worked in my husband's office today because one of the office girls couldn't turn up. and there were shortbread biscuits, and I was starving. I hadn't taken anything with me because I thought I'm only here for 3 hours. I had a shortbread biscuit, and then 2 hours later, I was so insanely hungry I couldn't think. It's unusual for me to ever feel like that. I was like shaky. I couldn't have a telephone conversation. So, just being really aware of what we need and how we can nourish our body, and then how we can, when we are nourished, all of your points, Tracey, once we are nourished, we actually don't have food cravings. Of course, we have the habit cravings. We still have I feel like ice cream after dinner, and chocolate's a nice hug when I'm sad or when my energy is feeling low. But, that kind of bouncing all day from these kind of lows and highs, you don't have to put up with that. And then you're more prepared to make better choices.
And it allows you to enjoy those times as well, I think. So imagine you're out for dinner and there's a beautiful dessert that you might not normally eat, but you can actually celebrate and enjoy, that treat, knowing that it's not just the end of a day where you've been, as you say, bouncing, and that's setting you up for more. So I think those foods are designed to be, for celebration and treat. And people are making a lot of money out of making that an everyday experience. So balancing those blood sugars is really key to it. And I love the tools that the two of you presented tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you too. Does anyone have any quick questions for us before we sign off?
Thank you. And so, Tracey, contacting you to find out more about how to implement some of the diet ideas and things. How does it do that?
Yeah, so I'm based in New Zealand, and run sessions just as a one-to-one if that's what you're interested in. And it's just you can contact me at info@tastesuccess.co.nz, and we can talk from there. Just whereabouts are you, Jennifer? Oh, sorry, I can't hear.
I'm in Australia.
Yeah, so just bear in mind the 2-hour time difference. Otherwise, we're all fine. 2 hours, I think, in most places. Yep.
So hang on. So it's 7 o'clock here now. What time is it there?
9.
No. Oh, so you're in there. Okay.
Yeah. Therese.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I really, when you put 2 and 2 together, Sharon, when you actually define like craving, it's about meeting an unmet need, and then it's unpacking like the reason for that. And most times the trigger for it is the negative feelings, whether it's loneliness, stress, and being able to actually find an alternative that's safer and better for your health.
Yeah.
And the reward was really interesting too, I felt, Sharon, because you feel an immediate reward from something like that, but actually you feel a deeper, more sustained reward when you're making better choices, don't you think? Have you all experienced that when you've changed a habit and you've got the sense of pride and the sense of achievement, which are actually a more sustained sense of reward, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it doesn't really meet the need. You know what I mean? Like you might have chocolate when you're feeling stressed, which is I do, disclaimer. But it doesn't satisfy me. Or when I'm tired, I'll always eat chocolate when I'm tired. And it doesn't actually work. So it's kind of this funny false belief. Like if I have this, I'll feel better. But it doesn't. If you're lonely, chocolate doesn't make you less lonely. It gives you this tiny little window.
It feels good in your mouth. It feels good in your mouth.
It does. I'm arguing with that one.
Yeah.
But I guess the long term, Tracey, you're talking about the long termness, which is not a word, of the choices that we make are really going to be the success or the lack of it.
They feel better. You feel more confident. You feel like once you've built on that and you've made, even around one tiny little thing and you've had a success with it, then that you can do it with the next thing. And so I think that is, a journey that all of us are on, actually, on some level. I can't imagine, I don't know anyone in my whole 18 years of practice who hasn't had some kind of addiction, and it's a strong word to use, but I don't know anyone who hasn't had something they've used to comfort themselves, even exercise overuse or whatever that might be. There's always something, and that's kind of okay. I think that's part of the human condition, how we comfort ourselves, but actually the comfort that we bring, as you've identified, can be far less harmful than what is, I don't know, put in front of us in some ways to be able to make these better choices. Yeah, I really appreciate those sessions, both of you. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Okay, so I just thought we could all end this with something that we're going to do. I'm going to try tapping. When I go to reach for the ice cream, I'm just going to do some tapping and kind of get. And I don't think I'm good with the words. I think I'm just going to tap and breathe. Maybe smell some aromatherapy at the same time, which is the next talk you'll have to give to us. Anyone else want to share something that they're going to try?
I'm going to actually not eat my dinner on the sofa, because when I do that, I will actually turn on the telly and I'll sit there for longer than I want to, watching something that I'm not even interested in. And it is just a comfort thing. And so I'm going to actually park my dinner at the table and put on some music, which I love. And then I'll be able to get on with the rest of my evening.
I was just going to say something that ties in with what Sharon just highlighted, that when's the best time to do tapping? It's actually the best time to do it is on a regular basis. So that it's always left, right, and center, so that when you most need it, when you're most tempted, or when you're down in the dumps, that you know that it's front of mind to actually utilize. So that's one of the reasons why Dr. Peter Stapleton, she does recommend to have like a tapping plan and to do it on a regular basis, so that it's front of mind when you need it the most as well.
Very interested. I've gone from being a bit of a non-believer, haven't I, Therese? We talked about this before and I was like,
I was a big non-believer. I read the tapping solution like 2 years ago and I put it aside. It's too woo-woo. But then when I actually went through like all the evidence, and then when I tried it on myself, it really is about being specific, which is the gold standard. You have to actually go double click on the associations and the connections with your childhood or whatever actually that stirs it up. And then you need to actually time it well. Like the best time to actually do that is before you get tempted.
Yeah, really interesting. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, it just feels like it's another form of mindfulness, Therese, the tapping, it's just breaking that habit and breaking the the habit cue. So it's a perfect combination of everything today, guys. Like Tracey, when you're talking about like giving yourself real food and not getting the sugars, and then Therese is like how to do that, and then Sharon with the habits is that perfect combination. And I'm definitely going to be trying it when I've got the house on my own and it's an afternoon and everyone's in. I'm like, right, I'm going to have some ice cream and I might put some Milo on it because no one's home. Then I have to find another way to reward myself for, giving myself a pat on the back sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, protein for breakfast, best way to start the day. And it doesn't have to be breakfast. It can be 11 or 10 if you're fasting. So I think that was the point you made too, Tracey. It doesn't have to be 6 a.m., 7 a.m. All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day and your evening and coming to listen to us. We'll be sending the recording and contact details for how to get in contact with any of us if you are interested. Good night.
Have a great night.